Right, thank you everyone for joining. My name is Lenny Teytelman. I am the president and one of the co-founders of Protocols.io. And before we get started on this tips and tricks advanced webinar, just a few housekeeping things. So first of all, we are recording this just for your information, and then we'll be sending the recording to everyone who registered for the webinar. If you'd like to use closed captioning, that should be enabled, and you should be able to find it in the Zoom panel at the bottom. There should also be a Q&A button there. So the webinar will be about 40 minutes, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions and just add them into the Q&A. Um, you also, since we're not an enormous group, it should be manageable. We're not over 100 people, so you can also just use chat instead of the Q&A. Either one will work. As I said, this is the tips and tricks webinar for people who are already familiar with Protocols.io. It's not an introductory one. So we'll go into some less intuitive, harder to necessarily uh, pick up on your own without looking at a tutorial or help page features of Protocols.io. Not all of them are complicated, what we'll cover in the webinar, but it's not an intro one. So if you're new to the platform, we do run, if you go to the webinars page, and we will send the slides around, so you'll have the links, but you can also find that in the footer of Protocols.io, the webinars link. We do run every month an introductory webinar in addition to this advanced one. There are also recordings of previous ones, so you don't have to wait for the next month if you've missed the intro one. If you're new to the platform, you can watch a recording of an intro one. We also have very good help section, and in that help section, you'll also see there is a demo link where you can actually request a one-on-one chat with our customer support or one of our scientists, and you can ask specific questions or even request a basic demo of Protocols.io. So with that said, here are some of the things we'll be going over today. So we will look at some of the components, advanced editing inside Protocols.io. We'll start with importing existing methods. I'll do a live demo of how I would put a new protocol in from an existing PDF or Word file. And then we'll cover some of these other topics and go into Q&A as well. All right, so I will now skip out of the slides and we'll go into the live demo portion. There we are. Just a second. Okay, so I'm assuming you have an account on Protocols.io. If you do, and you come in, you will, if you sign into Protocols.io, you'll end up in a workspace, right? So most of the time you'll be spending editing, creating protocols inside workspace. Um, One thing you'll notice, I have a PDF file here, is that it's not just the protocols that you create when you click new or import. You can upload files into the folder or parent workspace. And those files can be PDFs, zip files, PowerPoint, whatever is relevant for the methods and method sharing that you're doing. So different file formats, you can drag and drop them in. And for getting an existing protocol in, what you'll notice if you click on a file is that on the right-hand side, there is an AI-assisted converter. This does not send your protocol to improve GPT. It doesn't go to OpenAI. This is a Springer Nature business license, so all of your private content remains private. But if you have multiple protocols, it could be a Word file, it could even be a picture. You can click convert into protocols IO. It'll work in the background, should take 1 or 2 minutes for a protocol, and then you'll see it appear in the workspace where you drop the file in the right folder. This is something that, oh, that was even less than a minute. So there you see, we have a protocol that was just created with the automatic converter. We'll check how it looks later. The converter works for about 90% of the protocols, at least in our hands. So 1 out of 10 times, it won't recognize the format. It doesn't know where are the steps, what are the warnings. So it does fail sometimes, but 90% of the time it does a very good job. You still need to check it and make sure that it didn't miss anything, but it is a big time saver. That said, this same PDF that we have right there, I also have, you don't need, I know the font size is small. You don't need to worry about that. This is the PDF that we fed into the converter. I'm also going to create it manually very quickly, but it will take a little bit longer than 30 seconds. So new protocol. You'll also see you have import a protocol. You can drop multiple PDFs in and that will do the AI converter. But right now I'm going to start a new protocol. Demo. So here's the protocol. I'm going to actually grab the title. So let's see how long it takes. It's 11:09 in California. Let's see how long it takes me to put it in. So title, description, abstracts. This is one of the few things, if you are sharing a protocol publicly, abstract is one of the few things we do require. There we go. Put in the abstract. Warning section. We'll go into guidelines and warnings. You could put it into guidelines, into warnings. I like the before start if you have something that should sit right on top of the steps of the protocol. And then in terms of the steps, instead of putting them in one by one, there are 16 steps in here. Instead of putting them in one by one, I am going to select all of the steps. So here are the 16 steps, copying them. And there's the editor. And instead of putting them in one by one, I'm going to say insert steps from text, paste them in here. And I'm going to say that each number is a step because in this case, they're numbered, or it could be each line is a step. Preview. And here are the 16 steps that it's recognized. Add them to the protocol. This is not a perfect import either. It doesn't take advantage of all of the components. We'll look at some of them next, but at least I'm not copy pasting each step one by one. So here are my 16 steps. Not going to self-rate. And there we go. That took 2 minutes. And now I'll spend another couple of minutes adding sections and improving it. So here are the 16 steps. And there's our before start. There's the abstract. And now what we'll do, for those who are familiar with the editor, you know that when you click new, you can always add a section. So sections are nice for several reasons that I'll outline in a second. So the sections in the Word file are as follows, right? The first 4 steps are a section. So I might go in, select the first 4 steps and then say set section for them. So it'll group them together. It'll be easier to navigate through our protocol. The next section is steps 5 through 10. So now I'm selecting 5 through 10. And then we'll compare my manual import to what the AI converter did in 30 seconds. Right, and the last section of this protocol is steps 11 through 16. Set section, there we go. Okay, so the nice thing about the sections is obviously the relevant steps are grouped together. It's easier to read. You will also notice a table of contents to the left of the title when you're viewing the protocol. And when you create the sections, that automatically gives you a table of contents that lets you navigate between the sections. So it's easier to get to the right part of the protocol and gives you a sort of, you can imagine 150-step protocol with 10 different sections. So it gives you more of a map of what you're doing on that particular day. So sections are highly recommended. And we've finished putting in the protocol. It took 5 minutes to do it manually. And now let's compare the manual import to the automatic one. So actually they have the same title. I should have called, let me go back here and rename it manual. So I know which one is which. So we have the manual, and here's the one that was just pulled in. So let's open this. Okay, so how did we do if we compare? First of all, you'll notice I forgot to put the authors in. The automatic import converter did that really well. I don't have the authors here. If you have many authors and affiliations, it will recognize them, put them in correctly. We have the abstract, and then we have section 1, section 2, and section 3. So these are our 16 steps. And it looks like the before start warnings went into the guidelines. So it did catch all of the information. It did it in 30 seconds. And of course, after the automatic import, you can click edit, fix anything that you'd like to look differently. So maybe instead of the node being a separate step, we would like it inside our protocol. So I might grab the node, add a node component. Instead of having this step, delete the sub-step. So you get the point that the protocol is yours after the import. The import is a start, but then you can navigate, edit, and adjust it as needed. So that's the import. As I said, works 9 out of 10 times really well. Not every protocol is as structured and recognizable for the module that we call Protocolify, the import assistant, but it does work 90% of the time. All right, and now staying in the editor, doesn't matter if it's the manual one or the imported, staying inside the editor, there are a few things that I want to point out. So new step. There are a few things that I want to point out about the components. Most of the components that you see on the right-hand side are sort of self-explanatory. But there are a few that we do cover in the advanced webinar that might take a little longer to figure out. So if we go in biology, one such component is the smart component. And what this is, it's sort of a two-column table with as many rows as you need. And you will label, let's say, cells. You will label the first column, and the second column is to be entered while you run the protocol. So let's say total cells, percent dead, and I'm going to click that these are required steps. So as I said, basically a two-column table. These are empty steps. And now what is so special about this compared to just putting in a table? So if I click run on my protocol, and I'm going through, stepping through each of the steps. When I get to the smart component, it actually won't let me advance to 18 and 19 because I have required information. So only after I fill out the required fields, only then am I able to advance to step 18. So this is useful for runtime p-value pair information entry so that you have a record of what you observed. And of course, you can then export it as a PDF, send it to your electronic lab notebook or print it out, put it into your physical notebook. But this is a component that's really nice for that runtime capture of information as you're doing the work. And then finish the run, we'll save it in the folder. And you can always come back to it. So finish. And there we go. And now we should have our PDF file, the two imported protocols, and then in the green is the run record for what we just executed. All right, so let's go back and take a look at a few more components. So here I am in the editor. If you want to add a video, so at the top here, you have the ability to attach a file. That's easy if you have a Python script or any relevant file you want to add. That's an attachment. We have images and videos, so you can upload a video file right into a step. But one thing that I want to point out in this webinar is if you have a video from YouTube, Vimeo, or another platform, you can embed it in the protocol. So let's imagine that we want to put this one in. Skip the commercial. So here's a video. It's on YouTube. I want to add it to my protocol. Instead of just grabbing the link, which would not render in the step, it will just, of course, you can add a hyperlink to any website or any file, but if you want to share a video, click share and go to embed. That gives you the code that you would copy. And then you go back to the editor, go into the step, and instead of just uploading a file or clicking insert image video, you go to embed media, paste in that code from YouTube or Vimeo, and voila, the video is right in the step of the protocol. So that's the embedding. And next component that I want to point out is actually not a component, but tables. So of course, you can add tables. You can copy paste from Excel or Google Sheets existing tables. You can put the tables in manually, but I want to show what happens in terms of formulas. So if I paste a table in, copy, paste, here are values. But what if I want formulas? So Protocols.io does support entering formulas. You would do it similarly to Excel. So let's say this is going to be equal to 10 times whatever is in B2. There we go. So there's our 300. If you double click on it, it's a formula. And actually, if we go into the spreadsheet, you will see that each of these is not just a value, it's a formula as well. So what if I want, instead of manually adjusting it, what if I want to put in a table with formulas? So remove this one. And this works the same way in Excel and Google Sheets. I'm going to select the table, but instead of copying and pasting the values, I'm going to go to view mode and say, show me the formulas. So if I do that, copy, go to protocol, and there we are. And now it is showing us the values, but now if you double click, each cell is a formula. So that makes it easy to get your tables in from existing ones. And you can also then, for each table, you also have a download CSV that's automatically generated. So you can send the table to someone as needed, or put it in your lab notebook. Right? Let's create a new section. Right? Another less visible thing that I want to highlight here is that if you have hands-on protocols, you'll discover on the left-hand side in this menu that we have labels, visual labels for different steps. So if you're centrifuging, if it's a critical step, so let's say that this step is centrifuging, centrifugation. Let's say that this one is really important. You can have pause points overnight by petting. So let's say this is a critical step. It doesn't do anything super smart with it, but it just adds visual labels to the steps. So as you're quickly running through the protocol, it gives you or other users of the protocol who you're sharing with, it gives them a visual marker of what that step is without necessarily reading the text. So it's good for something that you're running over and over. Again, you might not need the text, but those visual markers are nice to add. Right? And then from components, we did take a look at the smart component. In the biology ones, you will also notice that there is a plate component that's lower down. So if you have a 96 well plate or whatever custom plate you have, we have some preset ones. This allows you to label, color, and has a lot of features. You can also, if you have a plate layout, in an Excel file, you can drop it in and it'll recognize and create a well plate map component in here. So we have templates. You can import from Excel file here, as I said. And you can also label individual rows or individual cells in here. So that's something that a lot of biomedical researchers have been requesting, and that is now part of protocols IO. All right, and the last thing that I wanted to show on the protocol editing level has to do with branching logic. So imagine that your protocol is the same through most of it, and then in the last 10 steps, depending on whether you're processing mouse cells or rat cells or kidney tissue versus liver tissue, whatever it is, or 1x preparation versus 5x, you might do things differently. So in that case, what we want to do is enter a step case. So it's not a component. On the left-hand side, I'm going to add step case. So let's say this one is kidney. Okay, so right now there's just one case, and I'm going to add another one. Okay, and now we are sort of branching out in our protocol. So if I'm putting in steps right now, it's keeping them separate for kidney versus liver, still staying in the previous section. Step A, step B. So we're in here, and now I'm going to switch out. New step. Okay. And if I go to view, I'll go down our plate map. By the way, you can zoom in and out on the plate. You can maximize it. So nice component, forgot to mention that. And here we are, when we get to step 23, it's asking us to select which one you're working with. So right now I'm looking at the case steps. Then I switch to L. There may be a different number of steps, but this completely uh, sep it's unlinked. It's completely separate for the two versions, right? So kidney has steps 23 through 27, and liver just has 2 steps. So this is sort of if-then logic in your protocol. And if you're importing it in and sharing, you can decide to just export a single one of these sections, or say, give me a PDF. When you go to export, you can say, give me a PDF with all of the sections, step cases that I have in there. All right, so these are the main things that I wanted to show inside the editor when we're talking about the advanced editing parts. And now let's switch to briefly discussing collections and forking. So if you're academic and you are publishing protocols and including them in a peer-reviewed submission for a journal, if these are part of a paper, you don't have to take each individual 10 protocols that you have and add them one by one into paper. What we recommend in that case is that you create a collection of protocols. It will let you get a DOI the same way as an individual protocol. And on the protocols part, so it looks very similar. You have guidelines, affiliations, collections look very similar inside the editor to the protocols themselves, acknowledgements. The difference is that instead of steps, you are adding the protocols to a collection. Right? So we can link to it, we can publish it, and I have multiple protocols. If you go into the editor, this can also be a workflow that you're capturing. You can edit, you can move around, so you could have sample process, sample collection, sample preparation, sample processing, and sequencing, bioinformatics part of a workflow. And all of that can be in a collection, and then you can reserve or publish, reserve a DOI or publish that and include it as a single link in a paper. This is also really nice, as I just mentioned, this is also really nice for sharing protocols. You don't have to, if you have 10 protocols inside, you don't have to publish them one by one. Once you click publish on a collection, all of the underlying protocols inside the collection are published automatically. So this just saves, makes your papers look nicer and saves some work for you if you're trying to share things instead of sharing them one by one, right? But uh, all of the same features in the editor apply with the exception of the step-by-step component and components inside them. Now, one of the questions that we frequently get and we cover on this webinar is when you're looking at an individual protocol, what is the difference between forking and copying? So if you've heard the intro webinar to Protocols.io, you will know that every one of the public protocols or private ones that you find on Protocols.io is a template and there is a prominent copy fork button on it. So what's the difference between them? If you're taking somebody else's protocol, you can only fork, which means that you're creating a separate version of it. If you publish it, they're connected to each other. People can see what is the same and what's different between them. But for your own protocols, you have the option when you click copy fork, you have several options. So you can create a new version. This is for the cases where you want to clarify a protocol, you have an update to it, there is a mistake. So if you're sharing a correction or optimization, that's when you as an author would create a new version. If you're not just improving a protocol and sharing a new version, then you go into copy fork. And here we ask you, which one would you like? So forking is for that example where one protocol is for working with lizards and another one is for working with snakes. There are differences in how you're doing the collection. So there you would make a fork. There is a relationship between these protocols. They point to each other. You can compare them. What is a copy for? A copy is really in the um, example of collections going to be very helpful. So a copy does not preserve a relationship between the protocols. It just copies everything that's in one. It's only available to you as an author. And the way I would use a copy is if I have 10 protocols that are part of a collection, they will have the same authors, they might have the same abstract, similar information, maybe the same guidelines, same references. So what I would do is I would create a protocol not add the steps as we have in here, but I'll create a protocol, put in all of the author information, put in the affiliations, put in the funder information, save that, and then I would go into the copy fork, and I would make a copy as many times as needed, and then I can create 10 different protocols that are part of a collection without having to retype and redo the affiliations abstract, warnings, etc. Right? So before putting in the steps, you make a sort of template and then copy that 10 times, uh, edit those protocols, and then make a collection from them. So again, just something that saves you time if you have a lot of protocols that you're going to be sharing and they have common information between them. If you forget any of this, when you click copy fork, there is a help page that explains what I just went through in terms of when to use the version, when to use the fork, and when to use the copying. Right? So collections, private collections, and fork version copy. And I know we already have some questions, so I'll highlight a few things about private sharing that you might not know about very quickly in just a minute. Run and task manager we won't get to today because I do want to make sure we can go over the questions. But in terms of sharing, if you're in the file manager, you can select one or more protocols. There's a share button. So obviously you can share with individuals by email. And you can decide what permissions to give to them. Please note that you don't have to share with individuals one by one. You can add multiple emails, separate by comma, but you can also share with an entire workspace, not just the one you're in, but if you're a part of multiple workspaces, the protocol lives in the folder in the workspace where you created it, but there is also there is a sort of symbolic link like you'd have on Google Drive where you can add other workspaces. You can add other workspaces, decide what permissions members of that workspace have, and then specify exactly where in that workspace you're sharing into. So that's another way to share. And if you're sharing with people, let's turn this off. If you're sharing with people who don't have an account on Protocols.io, so select a single protocol. Maybe it's for a reviewer, maybe it's for a colleague you don't want to invite into workspace, or as a collaborator who doesn't have an account on Protocols.io, you just want to give them quick access. At the very top of the sharing is the ability to create a private link. Once you click on that, this is a link that you can share with anyone and the protocol will open for them. So it's unlisted. Your protocol doesn't become public. It's not searchable, but you can easily share this link. And anyone is able to open it without signing in. But of course, they can't edit it or comment on it. It's only for view mode is where the private links come in handy. All right, so I am going to stop sharing the screen and take a look at some of the questions that we have. So first question is, let's see, for video attachment, is there a recommended size limit? I think we've had to increase it a few times when someone ran out, but it's several gigabytes. So Protocols.io is not meant to be a place where you put in terabytes of sequencing or imaging data. It's not a repository for that, but for video attachments, you're very unlikely to hit a limit. If you do, you can put it up on YouTube, or you can also email us. You can also email us and we can increase it on case by case basis. But I don't remember the exact limit for the attachments. There is something for files and videos, but if you're sharing public protocols, you can add as many images or big videos as you need. You shouldn't be hitting any limits. And of course, if you do, that's where the YouTube embedding is for. Or as I said, email info@protocols.io and let us know that you've reached the limit and maybe we need to reconsider and increase the file sizes. But in the past year or two, I don't think we've had anyone who's trying to share protocol on a video and hit our file limit. So apologies that I don't remember the exact uh, maximum, but it should be fine for most videos that you're sharing. All right. So we got that one. Next question. In the table, can users input their own multiplier and then the formula will adjust? Like if they have 20 samples instead of 10, will they need to multiply by 20 in your table or protocol? So for the tables, you do need to go into the editor and change, right? Change the multiplier. It's not at runtime to be shared with other users, but one thing I didn't go over, let me show very quickly, is that there is a multiplier for components, not for tables, but if you're using components and amounts. So let's say amount is going to be 10 microliters, and this is double distilled water. So I have some components with amounts. If I go into that run mode, there is a scaling that I can do. So it's 10 microliters right now. If I go to scale protocol under the three dots here, I can say that today I'm doing 20x. And it will multiply all of the amounts in the components all across the protocol, and it will save it. It will let you know that you have modified it, so you'll see that in the record after you've run it. But this does not work on tables right now, unfortunately. So it would need to be in the component amount component form for that. So great question. And next one. If a researcher runs the same protocols repeatedly, can protocols calculate the average completion time for each step as well as for one protocol? Another great question. We don't do that, but as you're running through, right now I'm sharing the screen, as I'm running through, we do timestamp when you completed it. So when you finish and you go to view the protocol, we do timestamp it. So it is something that is possible for us to add. And of course, it would be useful across different protocols. We don't have that now, but in the future, I can see that it would be helpful to know, did anything change today relative to how I usually run it, what to expect for this type of protocol. So I can see the benefit of that, but we don't have that right now. And then another question, can the step cases come back together after? So I'm assuming that's for the step case, for the branching, for the final section. So great question. Let me close out of here. That is something that we have discussed many times in protocols, on the protocols team. We don't have a way to merge back from the step case, right? So let's say we have the example kidney and liver, we've separated, but in the end, there is another 20 steps that are the same for both of them. So in that case, you're absolutely correct that you don't want to add those 20 steps and copy and paste, you can put them into kidney and the liver on the other step case, but that's not ideal. What I recommend in that instance is in the last step, instead of just copying and pasting, I would go to components and I would put in a sub protocol. So make that last merge 20, 30, whatever number of steps, make that a separate protocol. Maybe it's a buffer, um, or you can call it, sub protocol for the last step. And then for both of the step cases, just drop in that protocol inside, and then you can use it at runtime. And that's a sort of merge-like functionality. All right. And then question about a collection. Once a collection is created, will it be automatically updated if a researcher modifies one of its protocols? So if you modify a protocol, when people land on it, we do tell you that there is a new version of it available, but the collection is a snapshot for reproducibility and preservation of what was done and, for example, published 2 years ago. A collection is a snapshot once you've published it, and we have a DOI for it. We're not allowed to change things inside the contents of anything that has a DOI. So you would need to create a new collection. That said, in this example, you can see we have two versions of a protocol. So if someone comes to a collection that you published 2 years ago and opens a protocol that now has a new version, where is version 1? There we go. So if someone goes to version 1, they do have a notification that the protocol inside the collection has changed. And you can use the same versioning on the collections themselves, but you have to do it manually. So you can see here's an example. This is a protocol that is part of a collection, and the collection has two versions. So this is a collection with something like 8 or 10 different protocols inside it. It's version 2. And again, if someone comes to the earlier version of a collection, again, they will be guided to the newer one, but this isn't something that happens automatically. It's actually, I'm going to make a note that if you're making protocols, if you're changing the protocols inside of a collection and you're publishing new versions, I think we should be able, we don't have that right now, but I think we can add a button to update the collection, and then it would just create a new version automatically for you. So I can see us adding that functionality. We don't have that right now, but I can see that that would be useful. All right. And then the last question that I see is, can a researcher download the smart component as a CSV file from each run record? I don't actually know the answer to that. So let's take a look at our run record where I have filled out the component. So we can download a table. And where's the component that I ran through? Oh, this is one of the runs that's not finished. I didn't go through it. There's our finished run. Sorry, let's take a look here. So we've run it through. This is when we completed it. And the tables we can download, but not the component. I am also going to take a note of this. That's a good suggestion. We have a weekly brainstorming with our team, and I am going to bring both of these suggestions. One is for the update collection, and the other suggestion that's also really nice is CSV export of the smart component after run. Excellent. And think I think these are all the questions that we have, and we're 50 minutes into the webinar. I don't see anything in chat. So let us stop the recording here. Actually, before I stop the recording, there is one more slide that I wanted to share, which is the feedback. I'm going to put in a link to it as well into our Zoom. So for those who are on the webinar right now, or if you are listening to a recording of it, you should have the slides, you should have the link. It really helps us in customizing and improving the webinars that we run. If you take 2 minutes to give us feedback in a survey on what was useful and what you wish we would have covered better. So I will stop sharing there and turn off the recording.